let's talk about 2v8. So, 2v8 is out, and it's, well, it's something. At this point, it's no secret that 2v8 isn't exactly what it used to be. For the sake of simplicity, I'll be splitting this video into 3 parts. Killer, Survivor, and then lastly, just the closing thoughts with Killer and Survivor both included, and kind of where I think they went wrong, and what they could do better next time. Now, it's very important to point out, I'm not a game developer. I do not make games, and I know it's extremely difficult. I'm not saying I could do a better job. Just, maybe some pointers about things that I think could be improved. Not saying that I could improve them, just that, thoughts. With that being said, let's get into our first segment, the Killer experience. Now, for starters, I think it's important we talk about the elephant in the room, that being Legion's exclusion from the Killer roster this time around. On one hand, I get it, Legion just kind of broke 2v8 due to the fact that he had constant pressure and just kept people injured for the other Killer to just, take care of them. But just entirely kill switching him felt like a bit of an overstep. At the moment, it's unclear if Legion will ever return to 2v8, or even if he fits in 2v8. It's hard to say. I myself would love to see him make a return, but with Behavior's track record, I just don't think they're going to put that much development time into making sure he actually works for the game mode. Next, I want to talk about Killer combinations. To be honest, if you're running 2 slow Killers or Killers with that lack in high mobility, you're just gonna get steamrolled. Now, you can make do if just one person on your team is a high mobility killer like Nurse or Blight or Oni or Wesker, but if both of the killers on the team are slow, like Nemesis or Huntress, you really run into this issue of just, there's nothing you can do. You're both too slow to even properly establish pressure between the 8 separate survivors. This problem becomes especially prevalent when survivors opt to, instead of healing, just a gen rush. To that end, another really big problem is just the complete lack of gen regression that you can even employ as a killer. Usually you would have perks to make up for the lack of really good gen regression, but because you can't actually select perks in this game mode, you just don't really have a way to consistently regress gens. This problem is even more exacerbated by the fact that Blast Mine has basically become the base kit of one of these perk sets that the survivors have access to. Not to mention, it is a buffed version of Blast Mine that only takes 100 seconds to charge and can be sped up by doing gens. And this is just one of the 4 highly overtuned perk sets that survivors can employ in these matches. There's nothing like having a survivor dead to rights and then randomly they just pop a sprint burst, shift tech you for the rest of the chase, and then pop another sprint burst because the cooldown is only 20 seconds. And in a game mode where every second matters, so much so that getting blast mined can be the difference between winning and losing a game, having someone sprint burst away when you had them dead to rights is just really unfun and can often cost you the entire match just for that one chase. In this match here, I got blast mined not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. And that's not even counting the other times that my teammate was blast mined, as you could see in that clip right there. Now, yes, blast mined is a really funny perk to see proc in the base game, but in 2v8 where they're literally everywhere, they just are really, really annoying. Because you get hit with them constantly, and it takes away any pressure that you struggle to claw onto. This is all without pointing out that just losing in 2v8 as killer, especially crushing losses where 7 or 8 people escape, just hurt all the more when you waited 20 minutes to get into a match. Now, I get it. The queue times are only that long because Killer is the only true unique experience here. I mean, survivors get some unique experiences out of this game mode, but not nearly as much of a unique experience as Killer, a side that never really gets to that sense of camaraderie that you get when playing Survivor. All this to say, I think Killer is the more fun role in 2v8, but when you're pitted against even somewhat decent survivors who know what they're doing, you just kind of can't do anything as Killer, and you end up getting steamrolled 9 times out of 10. That's the end of this section, and for the sake of time, I won't mention some of the other problems that more than enough people have already brought up, but there are many more past what I said here. With that being said, I think it's time we get into the next section, Survivors. Now, my issues with the Survivor side of 2v8 aren't nearly as extensive as my issues with the Killer side, but I do have a few notable issues. One of which being items. In 2v8, you cannot equip items or bring them into the trial. Instead, you must find them in chests scattered about the map. While there are no items excluded from this game mode, and you can find purple items in chests, you're not ever gonna really find them due to the RNG mechanic of this whole thing. And truth be told, really the only item you ever are gonna want in this game mode is either a toolbox or a flashlight. That means that out of the 7 possible items you can get, really only 2 are actually useful, due to most of the classes having some way to heal pretty consistently and pretty fast. I only wish there was a more consistent way to get the items that you actually want, even if it's a longer and more difficult way than simply opening a chest. My next problem with Survivor is just simply the perk balancing, or rather, the class balancing. I feel like every class, in its own way, is kind of broken. Escapist gets an on-demand sprint burst, and as long as they shift tech, in 20 seconds they get their sprint burst right back, allowing them to prolong chases way longer than they ever should be able to. Guide is able to alert other survivors to the gen you're working on, and set blast mines and even wiretaps. Medic is able to quickly heal people and use their ability to fill up 50% of the heal bar in a radius around you, while also denying killers aura reading whenever they're injured after they've got off from a cage. And, not to mention, if you have 2 medics nearby, you can actually team up and use both of your abilities to instant heal everyone in your radius. And lastly, we have Scout, the arguably best class, who can pick up pallets, rebuild pallets, and if they're crouching and see the killer and the killer doesn't see them, aura reveal to every other survivor exactly where that killer is. Needless to say, the survivor classes are kinda overtuned. Next, I want to talk about survivor matchmaking, specifically the people you get paired with. Now, I get that the current system is in place due to the fact that queue times would be way longer if they had a proper MMR system in place. But with things the way they are now, you'll run into situations where 2 people are juicing the killer and just really giving them a run for their money, and literally nobody is on gens. Or 2 people will be on gens, 2 people will be in chase, and the rest of everyone else is just kind of doing nothing. Or you'll have times, like in this clip right here, where they should have reasonably got this pallet save, but because they really haven't played the game that much, I presume, they didn't know the right timing for it, causing me to get caged. Again, these kinds of things wouldn't happen with a proper MMR system in place, but I get it. They can't implement one because the extended queue times would already be much greater than the already outrageous queue times that are currently in place. Paradoxically, my argument is that survivors are both overtuned, but also because the lack of proper matchmaking, you get paired with people who just seemingly don't know how to play the game, which can be really frustrating, especially when you're giving it your all. Nevertheless, that's all I have to say about Survivor. Now, let's go to our final closing statements where we'll end off the video. Overall, I don't dislike 2v8. In fact, I'm actually rather fond of the game mode. I just wish it could be better, and especially in ways where it suffers the most. Of course, there will always be issues with matchmaking and queue times. I only mean that we should improve it in the ways that we can. Stuff like items could have a little bit less RNG, and survivor matchmaking could be a bit more accurate. Common killer problems like classes feeling largely useless and the only good class actually being Shadow could definitely be fixed, simply just by buffing the other classes or making it so that the haste that you get isn't so strict. Not to mention adding more synergy between killers. When the first 2v8 came out, that was one of my favorite parts about it, was the synergy you could obtain between killers. A synergy that I feel like has kind of been lost since we've expanded the roster. Overall, I like 2v8, and I am excited to see it return again and hopefully be a little better this time. And maybe some other game modes behavior. We've gotten 2v8 a lot in the past, year. I think we got it 3 times. Let's get lights out, or chaos shuffle or something. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and those were my thoughts on the 2v8 game mode. And overall, yeah, I think it's pretty good. Anyway, till next time, and thank you. Goodbye.